I don't think Sparty knew what was going to happen to them when they took a trip to Columbus. And we all saw what they didn't expect once the game started. Ohio State wins in a big way, 56-7 over the Michigan State Spartans. CJ Stroud goes off. Another wide receiver breaks another record. The defensive line sets the tone early, and we'll hand out game balls for today's win. All that in this live instant reaction video to Ohio State's 56-7 demolishing of the Spartans.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is a Saturday afternoon in the year 2021, November the 20th in the year 2021, and this episode of Locked On Buckeyes is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. I want to also thank everyone that is tuning in live, either via youtube.com/LockedOnBuckeyes or my personal Twitter page for our live instant reaction to the Buckeyes demolishing, beat down, mauling, whatever word you want to describe what Ohio State did in the shoe on Saturday afternoon. It was built up the way that it should have been built up. A top 10 matchup, number 7, number 4, Ohio State hosting the Spartans, Michigan State still trying to fight to win the Big Ten East and to make a trip to Indianapolis, Indiana for the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State, they are Ohio State, and Ohio State proved to everyone today that they are the team that they thought they were, or that they are better than maybe some people thought the Buckeyes would play. Ohio State from the very beginning of the game set the tone, made it very, very quick and early, made a very quick and early statement that this ain't going to be no game. This ain't going to be a performance where Ohio State shows up, they flop, they're not really in sync and tune to anything going on right there. No, Ohio State made sure to say, hey, look, if you want to play with the big boys, if you want to be considered one of the top teams in the country, you better come to play, because if you don't, it's going to be a long, long game. The Buckeyes very early on made sure that Kenneth Walker III, if he had any long runs, they were not broken for very, very long. He had a couple runs, maybe about 10 yards apiece, but it wasn't like Kenneth Walker III could really get going throughout anyway. In the first half, he only had 6 touches. 6 touches in the entire half alone. CJ Stroud in this offense, it seemed like they were hitting on all cylinders. If you were following along with me on Twitter, there was at one point in the first half, I'm like, wait, Ohio State just scored. As I am typing out another scoring drive summary for Ohio State, plays, how many yards that drive went, how long the drive went. I'm like, wait, they're scoring at an alarming rate, and it was so much fun to watch. Olave caught a pass. Wilson caught a touchdown pass, a 77-yard touchdown pass. Chris Olave, another one. Julian Fleming got in on the action. These are all touchdowns, not just plays. These are all touchdowns that were thrown by C.J. Stroud. Mayan Williams had a 1-yard touchdown run. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, all of those touchdowns I just mentioned happened in the first half. Let that sink in for you. So, because I know sometimes people will filter in and say, hey, maybe I had a wedding to go to, or maybe my kid had an activity that I could not miss, and I was not able to watch the game. Everything I just mentioned happened in the first half of the game. Ohio State very, very early, they said, wait, Michigan State, nah, this ain't for you. Ohio State scored 21 points in the first quarter. They scored 28 points in the second quarter of the game. And like I mentioned, Stroud went off. I believe he had 16 or 17 straight completions in this game. He was on it. He was on it from the get-go. We'll talk more about that and dive deeper into what CJ Stroud was doing that made it so easy, it seemed like, for him to move the ball down the field. Even though Ohio State didn't really have short drives consistently, a lot of their drives were long. They didn't get favorable field position on most of their scoring drives, but the field position didn't matter. 86 yards on their first drive. They went 88 yards on their second. Their third drive, 71 yards. Their fifth drive, 70. These are scoring drives. 70 drives. These are also not just yards, drives. These are consecutive drives back to back to back because that's how frequent the Buckeyes were scoring. Drive number 5, 70 yards. Drive number 6, 57 yards. Drive number 7, 85 yards. The field position didn't matter. It didn't matter if Michigan State was running man consistently, or if they're trying to rush and blitz. It didn't matter what Michigan State wanted to do in this game. They had no answer. They had no answer at all. In this moment, we're watching Ohio State play football. We're enjoying Ohio State play football. And I know for sure the College Football Playoff Committee is watching this game as well. You got Fowler and Herbstreit on the call. You got ESPN's Best calling the game on ABC in prime time, not cable. It is on network television, so more eyeballs can watch the game. And I know for sure they're watching this and saying, did we truly mess up by putting Oregon over Ohio State? Because Oregon won a game on September 11th, and this is the beginning to the middle of November. These are things I'm sure they are going through in the first half of the game, because that was where the statement was made. Michigan State, I will say, is not a bad football team. Some people out there might say, oh, Michigan State is a bad football team. They're not one of the better teams in college football. I would just tell you to say to them, pump the brakes. Michigan State is a good football team. However, Ohio State is a lot better. 56-7 beat down of the Spartans, and I literally loved every second of it. Thank everyone for tuning in to this live instant reaction video here on Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. CJ Stroud, that may have been his Heisman moment. Kenneth Walker III once again was talked about pregame and all week long, saying this week could be his Heisman moment. At the end of last week's game, our good friends at BetOnline.ag said CJ Stroud is the betting favorite to win the Heisman. Some said yes, but I don't believe, or maybe they were just in shock or in awe that, wait, an Ohio State player, the betting favorite? Is he really that good? Or have we underestimated how he has played the football all year long? Possibly. I do think many people out there have underestimated the kind of quarterback that CJ Stroud is. CJ Stroud's not a bad quarterback. Stroud is an amazing quarterback. If you look at his numbers, and most of this happened through 3.5 quarters of play, and in the second quarter, they really significantly dialed things back. Stroud only had 3 incompletions in the entire game. 32 for 35, 432 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, a 91% completion percentage, and a passer rating, which I sent a tweet out in the first quarter. His passer rating was like at 275.7. I'm like, wait, this is absurd. This is not normal. And I don't know the passer rating cap or the highest it could be in college. I'm not sure if there is a cap on it. But Stroud's passer rating in this game was 251.7. The cap in the NFL is 153.8, I believe. 251.7 is the passer rating for CJ Stroud in this game, and he was on it from the get-go, to the tune that Jackson Smith-Njigba had 10 catches. Chris Olave had 7 catches. Garrett Wilson had 7 catches. Njigba was targeted 10 times, had 10 catches. Olave was targeted 7 times, had 7 catches. Wilson was targeted 9 times, had 7 catches. It would have been 8 catches for Garrett Wilson, but the one incompletion early on in this game, before Stroud went on his consecutive streak of not throwing an incompletion, Garrett Wilson was on the right side, was on the top of the screen, the right side of the field. CJ Stroud rolls out to the right, throws the ball to Garrett Wilson, and I'm thinking, okay, Garrett, this is your catch. But no, Garrett Wilson, he starts to lean out of bounds, even though he didn't need to lean out of bounds to make the catch, and it was an incompletion. I firmly think that would have been 8 catches for Garrett Wilson if he did not lean out of bounds to make that catch. CJ Stroud, one thing he has done very well throughout this season is prepare throughout the week. And I believe his preparation throughout the weekend, as he has been a starter for 10 games that Ohio State has had, not 11, but for 10, if you would have looked at his preparation and how he played in the beginning of the Minnesota game or the Tulsa game or the Oregon game or the Nebraska game. If you would have looked at the preparation for those games now, Nebraska, Penn State, those games as well, those are teams. Nebraska's defense is good. It's just the offense can't score the ball. Penn State's defense is good. It's just the offense can't score the ball. So in those moments alone, those are two teams that you meet towards the latter part of October, one the first week of December, and you're seeing that the preparation for those games is better. But this may have been the best prepared we have seen CJ Stroud. He is able to be very, very patient, be very, very calm. And in the moment on the field, you're seeing CJ Stroud look downfield. I talked about his anticipation earlier in the week with Matt Sheehan from Locked On Spartans. He talked about how Stroud's anticipation has been amazing. I did not highlight how no matter if the rush is coming, now he did get sacked in this game, but no matter if the rush is coming or if he has a clean pocket, he stays poised, he stays calm, and he just waits for things to develop. He does attack things when they have developed or anticipating said throws so that when he makes a throw, it is in a spot that, one, is the best spot for his receiver to catch the ball. And then also, number two, it's also in a spot that the defender cannot get the ball. So Stroud is doing everything he is being taught and then some. I'm not sure anybody, and while you're watching this game, we're able to truly appreciate. We can all appreciate what Stroud is doing, but there's so much going on that Stroud is doing. If we learned about all of the minute details that Ryan Day is coaching him up throughout the week, we would get a greater appreciation and truly appreciate the player and the quarterback that Stroud is a whole lot more because, man, he makes it seem like these receivers are just wide open. I mean, they are exactly who they should be, and that is correct. And Jigba, like I mentioned, 105 receiving yards. Olave breaks David Boston's record, former Ohio State receiver, for most career receiving touchdowns at Ohio State. Garrett Wilson had 126 receiving yards. Once again, three receivers, 100 yards apiece. This is also going to be a season where you have three receivers go over 1,000 yards in a season. We already have Trevion Henderson who went over 100 yards. 1,000 rushing yards already. This is also a season where, this is not hyperbole, Ohio State has Michigan next week. Assuming they win that game, which I do believe they will, Ohio State will have the Big Ten championship game the week after that. Assuming they win that game, which I do believe they will have a playoff game and then the possibility to play for the national championship. That is at most four more games. Ohio State could have a quarterback going for 4,500 yards, three receivers for over 1,000, and Trevion Henderson, depending on how the season goes, now it's maybe a stretch. He could go for 1,500. That's probably unlikely. But Stroud going for 4,500, and then the other three guys going over 1,000 and a 1,000-yard rusher. This is stuff you don't see in college football. You rarely see this at all. Now, I have not fact-checked the NFL to see what NFL receivers or quarterbacks in the receiving room has done that. It's probably rare for that to happen. But this is the rare air and the type of thing that Ryan Day has been whipping up in his lab with Stroud's patience, with Stroud's arm, with Stroud being able to make all of the throws, with Olave, Wilson, and Njigba being very unselfish, and Trevion Henderson just really getting in where he fits in with this offense. It's amazing, literally amazing to witness this team play football every single week. On offense, it's amazing. But also on defense, defensively, this defensive line set the tone very, very early. Early in this game, and I'm watching this intently. I'm at home, and I'm very glad I wish I was at the stadium, but I was not in the stadium for this one. I watch games alone, and I do this on purpose. I literally have, let me get this out really quickly. I just went to the store yesterday and bought some more notebooks, so I have a notebook with the notes here. I got some more notes here. And so there we go. I'm tracking plays on one notebook on this one. I'm writing notes on this notebook. And so there's a lot of things going on with me. And I got a pen. I got my cell phone next to me. I'm trying to be active on Twitter and just tweet out different thoughts. There's so much going on when this team has the ball, when the games are going on. I'm really happy that I'm watching games by myself right now when I'm at home, because if there was anybody here with me, any type of distraction, man, let me tell you, the note-taking would not happen. The thoughts that come through the speakers right now would not be as clear as they are, and some are they're being formatted as I'm talking. So there's so much going on on a game day Saturday for me that I like having just me, myself, and I, my computer, the notebooks, the pen, little H2O for some hydration, all the things that go on. I love it. So at the beginning of this game, I'm locked in, I'm tuned in. I actually added a second notebook into this game. And I am sitting here just watching and looking at the plays here. And I'm like, wait, this is not normal. I mean, what we're witnessing right now from Ohio State in their offense, Mel Tucker made a mistake in this game. I don't believe it was a mistake, but it was a well-calculated risk, and he went ahead and made that risk. Mel Tucker decided to defer and get the kickoff in the second half, not the first half. I thought later part of the game, or later part of the week, on game day on Saturday, I was thinking Mel Tucker might take it on a little different approach. Don't give the ball to Ohio State early. Give the ball to Ohio State at the beginning of the second half. You take the ball at the beginning, march down the field, and make a statement early, because you want to be up on this team as quick as you can. You give Ohio State the ball early, the first drive of the game, you're basically saying, we know we're about to lose this game. I trust my defense, even though Ohio State's offensive strength is the Michigan State defensive weakness, and we saw that throughout this game. So Mel Tucker does that. And then early on, I'm trying to pull everything up, the drive chart here. It wasn't anything pretty for Michigan State. It was not pretty at all. Michigan State won the toss. They kicked the ball. And Michigan State really had nothing going for them. Michigan State really, from the time that they were running the ball with Kenneth Walker III, defensively, Burke was on it. Burke gave up a catch to Reed on the right side of the right side of the field, top of the screen. The next thing you know, Burke ends up, and I know this is like second or third time Michigan State has the ball. Burke ends up, which I thought wasn't a fumble, ruled an incompletion, but his hands consistently go, and he's consistently, even though while he is tackling, Burke is consistently trying to knock the ball away. The defensive line, I want to get to the game balls here in a second, because I do believe I got to highlight this very quickly before going to the game balls, because I got to change things up today, because the tone was set very early by a group of people. Between Haskell Garrett, Antoine Jackson, Tyreek Smith, and Zach Harrison, a group a week ago, a lot of it was dictated by the way that the game was played and by the way that Purdue's offense was going to go. Those four guys very, very quickly set the tone and said, hey, y'all got Kenneth Walker III. We know what people have been saying about us in our defense. We're going to get in the backfield quickly. We're going to read and be very aware of what's coming at us. Remember one play that Haskell Garrett was, I believe it was a D tackle, the three technique outside shade of the offensive guard. He got into the backfield very quickly because it was a screen pass. And instead of continuing to go to the quarterback, he sat back and said, look, you're going right to the running back who's to my right. I'm going to grab him and then slide and run towards him so that if you end up throwing the ball to him, it's going to come to me. That really set the tone early. Yes, the linebackers are flying around. Bryson Shaw had a big hit, a man that's been criticized very, very heavily lately. He had a big hit. But this tone was set very quickly and early by the defensive line. If Ohio State wants to win next week, win the Big Ten championship, or win any more games this season, the tone has to be set by the defensive line of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Got game balls to hand out for offense, for defense, and special teams. Special teams was a little bit easier. It was going to go to Noah Ruggles, but he ended up missing a kick, and I can't really, if you miss a kick, I have a hard time giving you that. Now, granted, it was second half. Granted, the game was over, but you missed a field goal. I could have said, yeah, he made every single extra point that he kicked, but I'm going to knock him because he missed that 38-yard field goal. And so, game balls today, offense, defense, special teams. Game balls going to C.J. Stroud. Could have gone to Chris Olave. He had an amazing game. He ended up also breaking David Boston's record for career receiving touchdowns at Ohio State. But this one's going to C.J. Stroud because Stroud was on it. And when you look at a Heisman moment, because the way that our society works, oh, you have this moment. You deserve to be the Heisman. Let's erase the previous X amount of games. You had this one moment on this stage, on this broadcast, on national television. You deserve to be the Heisman because of this Heisman moment. Let's realize C.J. Stroud has had in a Heisman season. This may have been his Heisman moment, but the entire season he has showed and he has progressed to be the Heisman of this year, the best player, offensive player in this year. If you want to go defense and to say that the best player is on the defensive side of the ball, well, Anderson at Alabama, Jordan Davis at Georgia, so be it. I believe there's a conversation for that. But we all know this is primarily an offensive award, primarily, there we go, a quarterback award. And I firmly believe it today goes to C.J. Stroud. Against the offensive game ball. Chris Olave, a very close second for breaking the award and also leading the team in receiving yards, also having 2 touchdowns of his own. Very, very close. Had that amazing catch by the goal line, I believe, in the second quarter. My first and second quarter numbers were all jacked up because it was just that amazing, the things we were watching. Chris Olave was a very, 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 very close second. Could have gave him the nod for the senior day performance, but Stroud wins it. Defensively, now I know. I made a comment recently where I said, we're not getting game balls out to multiple players on one side of the ball. We're changing things up. There will be times when multiple players do end up getting game balls, and today we're doing that very thing. The defensive line gets a game ball today. All 4 of them, the starters up front, they get the game ball today. Because by them setting the tone early and not allowing Kenneth Walker III to get off, the man who I believe was in the running for the Heisman Trophy throughout most of the season, Kenneth Walker III, 6 carries, not catches, 6 carries. He had 1 catch for 4 yards. But Kenneth Walker III had 6 carries, there we go, for 25 yards, 4.2 yards a pop. That's not how Michigan State wants to play. That's not how Michigan State wants to be successful. That's not how Michigan State moves the ball. Those 4 guys up front dictating the pace and being the aggressors and winning the battle in the trenches, that derailed any offensive attack Michigan State was going to have throughout this game very, very fast. And then last but not least, special teams. You got to give it to Marcus Williamson. I believe the first kickoff of the game, the first time Ohio State kicked, Marcus Williamson had the tackle very, very quickly, honestly. And I was like, Marcus Williamson, you have this one. Your last time, you stepped up in a big way by being somebody that could be solidified there at that cover safety position. That goes to you. Offense, defense, special teams. By the numbers, this game was not close at all. Average yards per play, 7.6 for Ohio State. Total plays, average for Michigan State, 3.8. Total yards for Ohio State, 655. For Michigan State, 224. Ohio State, 449 through the air. That's between Stroud and McCord. Also, Quinn Ewers ended up coming on and playing the final minutes of the fourth quarter. Michigan State only had 158 passing yards. This is the one that's startling. Rushing yards for Ohio State, 206. Michigan State, 66. The rest is history. Ohio State wins big. They maul, they destroy, they demolish the Michigan State Spartans. And Ohio State moves to 10-1 in hate week begins. Guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this instant reaction video for Ohio State's win over the Michigan State Spartans. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can also follow the podcast on YouTube. Just search Locked On Buckeyes on YouTube or hit the search engine or your web browser and type in youtube.com/Locked On Buckeyes to find that right there. Be led right to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and hit the like button on this video so it can help the show grow by hitting the bell. It allows you to be alerted anytime the podcast goes live. We all like to win money, and Locked On Bets, the Locked On Bets podcast, is a place to be your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling, can be found on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast, wherever you find or you're listening to Locked On Buckeyes. Just search Locked On Bets. You'll find that podcast as well. 56-7 mauling of the Spartans. Loved it. We'll be back on Monday and all throughout next week, getting you ready for the Michigan game and a couple basketball games sprinkled throughout the week as well.